All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I know you guys are popping on. Hi, Katie. I am so excited you guys are here for this. So here's what we're going to do. Okay, all situated now. We're live. Okay, so I am so excited to be here with you guys this week, definitely today. I know that I'm really going to get into like why I put together this challenge and why it's so key, especially to, like I said in the title of this, like unlocking your wealthy future and what that really means. So I really want to start there. If you guys are joining and hopping on as we go, just let me know that you're here. I am so excited that you guys are here and live. And of course, if you're watching the replay later, that is okay. Just let me know what questions you have. Feel free to reach out at any time. I'm so excited to get started. So I want to start by talking about like what this challenge is going to look like, really the purpose behind this, and getting into kind of defining two different things, like this idea of confidence and this idea of wealth. I know I talked a little bit about it in one of my posts, that wealth isn't just money, but it definitely is part of that. So first of all, like let's dive into like what is this supercharger confidence to unlock your wealthy future? What does that actually mean? So why confidence, right? Today we're really going to get into a lot about imposter syndrome and feeling good enough, and really diving into why confidence is so important, because that's what a lot of the times what we're looking for, right? We want to feel confident in our business, in ourselves, in what we're doing, in the value that we bring, right? Like you want to feel confident in so many ways so that you can actually like feel good doing what you do, but even more so like actually show up. So I see this a lot in business, and this is definitely true for myself, is showing up for your business, showing up for yourself, so that you actually show up to sell and promote your offers and make the sales that you're wanting to make, right? I'm going to relate so much of this to business because I know that most of you, not all of you, but most of you have a business or are thinking about starting a business at the very least. So I'm going to relate a lot of this to business because this is so key when it comes to business owners, entrepreneurs wanting to take something that you love doing and really take it to that next level of starting a business, but even more so of like actually having it be successful and make money doing it, right? Like that's really why we do it, is so that we can sustain ourselves, so that we can do it more. I talk about this all the time, right? It's like you have to make money in order to have a business, right? Otherwise it's just an expensive hobby. So like, of course, that is a huge goal. So that is definitely part of it. You have to feel confident in yourself, in what you do, in the value that you provide, in your business itself, in your offers specifically, right? You have to feel confident about all of those things to actually show up, get visible, get in front of people, get in front of your ideal clients, actually sell, actually promote your offers so that you can, in turn, attract your ideal clients, make money in your business, and actually build your, what I want to get into, your wealthy future, right? So as a business owner, we want so many different things from our business, which is why I like to use the word wealth versus just like rich or just specifically money, because I go into this more with a lot of my clients that I work with, especially around human design, because some people are really wired to want to get money, right? Like just for the sake of like hitting those income goals, being excited about the challenge, really being competitive and like going after that next goal, right? Like some people are really wired to be that way and be driven toward just this idea of money. Most of us, however, are driven toward money because of the thing it's going to get us, right? So if you resonate with this, like let me know. But there's so much more about like what the money is going to bring you, which is again why I use the word wealth, because it's what money is going to allow you to do, right? Whether it's like buying a house for your family, or being able to invest more into yourself and into your business, or buying a car, or paying for groceries, paying for Christmas gifts as we get close to the holidays, you know, like all of these different things, what it's going to allow you to do. Maybe it's allowing you to pay off debt so that you are able to feel like more secure, more stable. You have more flexibility with your finances because the debt is now paid off. You feel like the sense of relief and everything because that would be paid off, right? Like that's really what you're striving for with that, not just the money itself. This is how the majority of us work. So this is why I like to use the idea of wealth versus just talking about money, because it could encompass so many things. So as I asked you guys in kind of the intro post to this challenge, is how do you specifically define wealth, right? What does that exactly look for you? Sure, money is definitely involved in that, right? Maybe it's a specific income number for your business. I love that you guys are resonating with us. Maybe if it's a specific income goal, right? Maybe it is money to some capacity, but maybe it's what it's going to bring you, right? What is that really going to give you? What is your definition of wealth? I talk about this a lot. If you have followed me for a while, you've probably heard me say the same thing about success, right? Success is not just this like end all be all, this is success, like black and white version. And like, if you don't hit this, then you're not successful, right? Like success, again, just like wealth, is defined by you. How do you define your own version of success? How do you define your own version of wealth? What does that specifically look like for you? I like to use this a lot with my business clients because it's so different when one person who maybe just wants to kind of start up a side hustle, right? And just do something that they love, take their passion and really turn it business. But really just to like, start getting some income, like supplemental income in on the side, like really as a side hustle. Maybe it's just like $500 extra a month that they could get so that they could go out to dinner with their family, or so that they could save for a vacation that they really want to do, right? And like, that's really all they want out of it. And that's fine. Like that's their version of success. Other end of the spectrum, right, is maybe you want to like grow your business to like this multi-million-dollar company, have like a big team, maybe you want to franchise it out. Obviously, those are two ends of the spectrum, but there could be anything in between, and none of them are wrong. That's my point around like you creating your own definitions around these words, because none of these are wrong. And I think that that's a huge piece of where your confidence starts, is being able to define these terms for yourself: wealth, success, what you truly want from that, being confident in that instead of questioning it or wondering if it's good enough. We're going to get into that today. Or wondering if it's the right thing instead of like trying to follow someone else or get the answers from someone else. Again, we're going to touch on so many of these things. But when you're really confident in what you want, how you define it for you, you're able to then actually go after it and kind of shut out all the noise, actually show up, actually be selling, which I'm going to get into more in a different day, and actually like get the result that you want, right? So much of this actually comes back to mindset versus the strategy. Of course, there's strategy pieces to business that we all have to have, right? But if the mindset's not there, it's not going to happen, right? Because you have to be fully behind it in order to do it. You have to be fully sold on yourself first before you can go and sell what you're selling in your business, right? So that's kind of, I could talk about this all day, obviously, but that's kind of where I want to start you guys with, like, why confidence is so important to getting you that wealth, and then what wealth actually looks like for you. So if you haven't yet, I do want to start you here on, take some time, pause this video if you need to, especially if you're watching the replay, and write down, like, what is your definition of wealth? What does that look like for you? What money do you want? How do you want that to come to you? What is that going to bring you? What is the bigger picture for you around how you define wealth, right? Okay, so with that as an intro to this whole challenge and some of what we're going to dive into, there's so many parts of this. All of these is what I dive into my clients with, which is why I decided to put it in this challenge to really like kind of kickstart or like boost, or like I say in this challenge, like supercharge your confidence, right? To get you started with this so you can feel more confident and actually like show up and go after that version of wealth that you want. So day one today, it's all about feeling good enough. This is really about imposter syndrome. So if you resonate with imposter syndrome, I know so like every single one of my clients, regardless of where they're at, even if it's in like an area of their life instead of just their business, imposter syndrome comes up, right? You have these feelings of, what if I'm not good enough, right? You question yourself. I'm going to talk about more of what this looks like. But first of all, I kind of wanted to start here because I feel like the word imposter syndrome is thrown around so much and we kind of attach to it. We identify with it. We resonate with it for sure. But what does that actually mean? So I thought it would be interesting to actually share the definition with you. So imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments, which is a huge one, and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud, right? So we have that fear of like, what if somebody finds me out? What if I'm not actually good enough and somebody finds out, right? What if I am a fraud? What if I can't do this, right? It usually, I feel like, shows up as like kind of those what if questions in your mind, or just those internalized fears, like it says, of like, oh my gosh, like I'm afraid to do this. It's probably related to this idea of imposter syndrome, right? This fear of failure, like what if I fail? Again, like these what if questions. I'm going to get more into some of those, how it shows up and what that looks like. But first of all, like where I want to start with, as you know, the definition, as you identify with this, if this resonates with you, I want to start here and just say, first of all, imposter syndrome is completely and 100% normal. Like I said, all of my clients have come to me with some version of imposter syndrome around something, right? I have had my own definite times of imposter syndrome, which I wanted to share a little bit because I do want to just normalize this feeling for you that this is normal. It happens to literally everyone, even at different parts of their journey. We see this, I would say, most common when people are just getting started with something, which is probably where you're at and why you're feeling this imposter syndrome. But it's not just at that beginner level. It really happens at every single new level that you hit, right? So I want to like warn you a little bit. If you're just getting started, say in business, you're just really getting started on these big like goals and dreams that you have, or pushing toward this version of wealth for yourself, it's all going to be new, right? So you're going to hit this imposter syndrome, and it's not something that just goes away. I always like to use like the words like conquering imposter syndrome or learning how to overcome it, but you can never really like, you're never going to eliminate it. It's never going to be fully gone. You're never going to be able to really get rid of it because there's always going to be something new that comes up that's going to make you feel a little bit like that imposter again, right? Because it's something you haven't done before, which is my point. So every single level in your business, in your life, like all of these new levels that we seek and get into, you're going to hit up against some kind of imposter syndrome because you've never done that thing before, right? That's really where it stems from. So I want to share just a little bit of a backstory for myself and where imposter syndrome has come up. So if you're trying to like identify this for yourself or really understand what this looks like for you, like fully identifying what imposter syndrome is and how it shows up, which is so key. It's one thing to just say like you're feeling like an imposter or that imposter syndrome's coming up, because like I said, this word is thrown around so much. So how do you actually identify it? And even more so, how do you identify it specifically so that you can overcome it, which we're going to get into today. So I'm going to talk about some of my business experiences. You know, when I first started my first business, which was photography, it was so funny how different that business felt. Sure, I definitely had some imposter syndrome come up with that one, but I just kind of dove in because photography was something I had been doing. I just decided to more of like monetize it. Versus when I started my coaching business, when I had the idea, let's start there. When I had the idea to start my coaching business, this was in late 2014, early 2015. I really wanted to do this. Specifically, I wanted to help other creatives like I was, right? As a photographer, I wanted to help other people who are passionate about like a hobby or some type of in the creative space turn their passion to a business, basically, right? Like that's what I really wanted to help people with. I was going to school for business at the time. Like I really wanted to do this. And imposter syndrome came up big time for me because I kept thinking, who am I to do this? Because at that point, I had only had my photography business about a year, maybe a year and a half or so. I was like, I'm still like very, very new to business. Who's going to listen to me? Who am I to do this? Who am I to teach other people? And then as I started to get into the idea more and more, I was like, well, what if this idea isn't good enough? Right? What if I'm not good enough? What if this idea doesn't sell? Like, what if I fail at this? Those were legitimately some of the fears and worries that were coming up in my mind that really held me back. And it was to the point where I was like, I was spinning on this idea for a while. I really wanted to do it, but I had so many of these fears come up. So I was like, well, maybe I should do something that I am more, that I've done for longer, right? And I can really help people with. So I shifted my idea quite a few different times. One of the ideas I shifted to was more since I was working in HR at the time, and I had done recruiting and hiring and resume building and all of those things for quite a while through different jobs. I was like, well, maybe I could help people like find new jobs and like, or hire their dream team or like different things like that, right? You can have so many ideas. And this is what I run into with a lot of my newer clients around, especially if you are the person who hasn't, I want to speak directly to you first. If you are the person who hasn't officially started their business, maybe you're stuck on some ideas, maybe you're not exactly sure what you want to do yet, and you're in this place. Here's what I want to say to you is when my clients come to me, and definitely myself when I was in this time too, is it doesn't matter what the idea is. And I know that that's really like uncomfortable to hear because you're like, but I have to figure out what the best idea is, right? The best idea was probably your first idea because like when it came to my own, I ended up going full circle back to that first idea because that's what I was most excited about doing. That's why I had the idea in the first place, right? So I encourage you to go back to that first idea and really question that one and start there because more than likely that's probably the one you feel most excited about doing. That also might be the one that you have the most imposter syndrome around, which is totally understandable. The thing about it is it doesn't matter which idea you go with. It's about your confidence behind it and being okay to let yourself kind of go through this trial and error process to fail or to like do these things that you've never done before, to get into it and just try it on, even if it's not perfect, even if you do it for free. And I talk to my clients more about like this idea of beta testing or working with some free clients for a while just to get your confidence up. Again, it comes back to confidence, right? But it doesn't matter which idea it truly is because you actually have to get started and give yourself permission to let it be messy, let it feel uncomfortable, let the imposter syndrome be there and work through it instead of trying to find the idea that doesn't have imposter syndrome for you, right? So fast forward a little bit. Like I said, I came full circle back to that same idea that I originally started with and still had a lot of imposter syndrome come up. So another one of the ways that this really showed up for me, and even more importantly, how it continued to hold me back was, okay, I was going to start this business. I had the idea. What came next was I ended up getting like the domain for my website. I hired a website developer or designer. I had them create a logo. I had them work on branding. I was working on a lot of the copy for my website. I cannot tell you how many times I redid my website, or like I redid the messaging, the copy on my website. I redid some of the graphics or messed with the logo or messed with the colors a little bit because I wanted to have everything perfect. This is, again, where a lot of this imposter syndrome came up because it made me feel like I needed to show up perfectly, or I needed to have everything looking professionally and perfectly before I could even launch it, right? And I'm sure that, again, so many of these people, so many of my clients that I work with and so many other people that I've known will stop themselves on this because it's easy to say like, well, I need a website. I could go into so many things about this, but I just want to say, like, as a side note to this, you don't need a website to start. One of my businesses, I still don't have a website. I don't have any social media profiles. I literally have a Google document with information, like general information about my packages and info, and that's it. And I have been booked out in that business ever since. Like, you don't need a website. It just feels better because you kind of get to, like, I want to say, like, stroke the ego a little bit. You get to really like soothe that imposter syndrome a little bit by saying, like, by doing this, by showing up perfect, or by having all of these things in place first, then I'll feel good enough. Right? But you actually don't. So you continue to keep yourself busy, which is what I did for nearly a full year, where I was in the position of like, I need to get clients. I want to get clients. I really need to start making money through this. I want to leave my day job, like all of the things, right? And I was keeping myself busy so much on all of these back end things that I felt like I needed in order to launch the business, instead of actually putting myself out there, going and actually selling, or saying that I was even like open for business or accepting clients or anything. I wasn't actually selling, which is, again, where so many of my clients, if this is you, it's okay, right? Like, I don't want to, I'm calling you out, yes, but only because I've totally been there, and all of my clients go through this at some capacity, where it's like, they want the sales, they want the money coming in the door. They're trying to figure out so hard how to make it happen or what they're doing wrong, but they're not actually showing up and selling. And again, that's where this comes back to your confidence and feeling good enough, feeling confident enough to show up and sell, so that you can attract your ideal clients and bring the money into your business, right? Again, it's all where it comes back to. So with some of those stories, I could get into so many other stories. I've had imposter syndrome come up so many times. I have so many client examples. Oh no, let me check that while I'm talking, Heidi. If not, the replay will definitely be available. Let's see here. Okay, so as I try to multitask a little bit. So like I mentioned, like going back to imposter syndrome, the imposter syndrome truthfully comes up when you are trying to do something that you've never done before. When you are new at something, this is going to come up for you, right? And I want to have you think about specific, okay, I'm approving her into the group now, so she should be able to see it. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so I want you to think about some experiences that you have had where you did something for the first time. When something was new, maybe you started a new job. Maybe this was when you were younger and you started at a new school, you know, whether it was like middle school or high school, and you started at a brand new school. That was something new that you've never done before. Starting a new job, starting a new position, getting promoted and starting that new title and position, right? Even thinking back to like kind of more simple things of like, what about the first time when you drove a car, right? Or when you learned something new, when you decided to like go to college or do something completely brand new, right? I want you to think of an instance where you did something new for the first time. My point around this is that we do new things all the time, right? Maybe you went to a new restaurant. Maybe you rode a roller coaster for the first time, or went to like a theme park and like rode one of their rides or something for the first time. Maybe you ordered something brand new off the menu of the coffee shop that you usually go to and tried something new, right? Like I said, my point is that we do new things all the time. So why is starting a business so much different? Why is like doing something in business that you've never done before? Why does that seem so much scarier than all of these other new things that we do all of the time, right? Usually part of what comes back to it is because then we're asking for money. We're asking for an exchange of value in some sort, like this transaction to happen. That's typically where a lot of this imposter syndrome can get stuck, because when you ask for money, there's almost like this extra pressure on it, which is funny. And here's where I want to say, like, this is the irony, or how we get in our own way. I almost called this challenge that, because it's just so true. Like, this is exactly what I mean by that. We tend to get in our own way, because if you think about this, when it comes up around money, and we get afraid to charge for the thing that we do, or have those pricing conversations, or actually ask somebody for the sale, and in return, have them pay us and then deliver on that service. The thing that's so funny about it and how we get in our own way is that we actually want the money, right? Like that's what you're working toward. You want that new client. You want the money to come in. You want to get that income for these other things that you want, right? That the money is going to give you, and to show you that you can have a successful business as you're defining your version of success for yourself. You actually want that to happen. And the imposter syndrome comes in and says like, but I'm scared to do that. Again, like, what if I fail? What if I can't deliver on it? What if I'm not good enough? Right? So that's why we tend to not ask for the sale, because even though that's what we want, it's scary to ask for that. This is exactly because 2 and 2 are the same, right? This is exactly how we get in our own way. Okay, for me, I have difficulty separating my worth from my work and business. Oh, I love that. Same, Katie. Okay, cool. I will get into that. If we don't get into that today, I'll get into that more this week too. So definitely bring that back. I love that. Okay, that's perfect. So yeah, so this idea of money, like that's what we want, but that's also what we're stopping us from actually having because of this imposter syndrome, right? So why you don't feel good enough. Let's kind of get into this side of it. The money piece was just an example. Let's get into actually why you don't feel good enough, or why this imposter syndrome is coming up. Like I said, right? It's probably something new that you haven't done before, but why we can actually do so many new things without feeling so much imposter syndrome, like driving a car for the first time, starting a new job. Maybe you feel some with that for sure. Going on a roller coaster, ordering something new off the menu, going to a new place, right? Like whatever these things are, why you don't, sorry, excuse me, sorry about that. Why you don't feel good enough is because you're not truly owning your power. And I'm going to get into what I mean by that, right? So this all really comes into this idea of confidence. Like, what is confidence? Where does this come from, right? So here's a few things I want to touch on that really like create your confidence. First of all, I want to say that confidence isn't something that you create. It's not something that you can like buy or get. Confidence is something you innately have. You just have to, what I'm using is like, you have to own your power in order to find it, in order to, I like to use the word like rediscover it, because it's something that you have within you. You just have to, through your mindset, through how your brain works, through your thoughts, your thinking patterns, the way you look at things, like your own perception, all of the way that you do these things, truly your mindset, comes back to how you own your confidence. And that's where you, like, how I like to call it, is that's how you rediscover your confidence, right? So that's one of the best parts of this, is like, this isn't something I can give you, which is also hard, because I mean, if I could sell you confidence, I would do it in a heartbeat, right? But that's not how it works. I cannot sell you your own confidence. You have to find that for yourself. You have to do that work to rediscover it in yourself and tap into it, so that you can then own it and like use it and feel it, right? Like this comes from within you. So I want to start there and say that, like, you cannot find or buy confidence externally. You do truly have to find it within yourself, which is great and hard. So it's like, how do you actually do this? So part of this is like owning your power, like I mentioned, really like understanding yourself deeply, owning your own story, like where you came from, what you've experienced, what you've been through, looking at all of these different parts and experiences of your story, all of your accomplishments that you have already accomplished, and really truly giving yourself credit for all of these things. This goes back directly to the definition of imposter syndrome. So let me scroll back up to that. So let's see here, which an individual doubts their own skills, talents, or accomplishments. So when you doubt your own accomplishments, right? Like you have to own those things first. You have to really like understand and like accept those things, that those are part of you, in order to truly own them, right? You need to really identify this idea of limiting beliefs. So we're going to get into some of that today, which I'm excited about. you really need to identify what those limiting beliefs are, or even what your, without calling them limiting beliefs, because if you don't know they're actually limiting, identifying your own beliefs, basically those thoughts that come up in your head that feel so true, identifying those beliefs and consciously working to change and rewire them, which again, I'm going to get more into today. Rebuilding, this is huge, rebuilding your own self-trust. Self-trust is huge. This is why we question ourselves. This is why we doubt ourselves, because we don't simply have trust with ourselves to make the right decision or to do the right thing, because we're worried, well, what if that doesn't get me the results I want? What if that's the wrong thing? What if it's not good enough? Right? If you trusted yourself, if you had that self-trust with yourself, you would doubt yourself less. You might doubt yourself every once in a while. You might question what you're doing, right? But you're going to do it. And Katie, this kind of goes into what you were talking about like this idea of separating or like detaching yourself from things. If you don't have self-trust with yourself, you are probably attaching too many things to you personally. So this comes in with money for sure. Like if you attach money to yourself, which means like if you get the money, it means something about you. If you don't get the money, it also means something about you, which in reality, if you do or don't get the money, if someone does or doesn't pay you, it doesn't mean anything about you, right? It means that maybe they got super busy. Maybe they got in a car accident. Maybe something happened where they couldn't just pay the invoice, right? Not only does it like factly not mean anything about you, probably has nothing to do with you, but even so, like whether they pay or they don't pay, or they choose to work with you or they don't choose to work with you, it doesn't actually mean anything about you, right? It's about the thing that you're offering. And when you can detach that and see that it doesn't mean anything about you personally, it's this separate thing, then you have more trust with like, that's okay. Or you can be more resilient. You can really like bounce back from that and see it in a different perspective to say, cool, like this doesn't mean anything about me. I'm just going to try something new. I'm going to get into this later, but it really comes back to like, it's always this idea of failure, right? Like, again, like what if you fail? Does it actually mean that? So let me ask you this question. I'm going to get back into this more at the end of the video because we are going to talk about this. But I want you to ask yourself, if you were to fail at this thing, whatever that is, fill in the blank, right? If you were to fail, what would that mean about you? I want you to answer that. I want you to think about that, and I'm going to come back to that. Okay, so rebuilding trust with yourself, trusting that you can do things that you've never done before. Stop breaking promises to yourself, which is such a big one. This could be something as simple as like something on your calendar that maybe you push off because somebody else needed help, or something that you wanted to do for yourself that you kind of push off or break your promise about usually because of someone else. And like, especially if you're a parent, I see this a lot where of course, like you want to show up for your kids or you want to show up for your family first, typically. But if you are breaking your own promises to yourself in the process, you can really harm that self-trust with yourself, just like any relationship, right? Let's see here. Okay, so with all of those, sorry, so many notifications. With all of those pieces to really like how you truly own your power, I want to get into a little bit about how your brain works. I'm not going to explain this fully. If you've like watched any of my videos before where I talk about this, you've probably heard me say this to some extent, but this really comes from the NLP world, neuro-linguistic programming, which I am certified in. Really thinking about, so going back to those beliefs, the thought patterns that you have, right? All of these thoughts and beliefs and basically all of the thoughts that run through your head, especially when it's like, well, what if I'm not good enough? Or, the imposter syndrome that comes up, what if I fail? All of these are thoughts because of how your brain works, right? You might initially be worried about something for the first time, but more than likely it's because of other experiences that you've had. Basically how your brain works is you take in 2 million bits of information like every second, right? Bits is just how they measure it, but you're taking in information to everything that's around you through all of your five senses to take in information. Your brain then does three things, right? It deletes the information that you don't need. It distorts the information that you keep based on your past experiences, things that you've gone through before, things that you know to be true, or your current beliefs that you have. So it deletes, distorts, and then it generalizes the rest of this information, again, based on like what you've already experienced or what you know is familiar to yourself. So anything that you've experienced before that's similar, it may generalize it to say, oh, this thing is kind of like this other thing. We're going to kind of like group that together, if you will. This comes up a lot when it comes to failure, because you might have some instances where you had times where you failed at something, and it's going to generalize these failures together to then make you potentially think that, well, this is the same or very similar to these other things. So what if I fail? And then that's going to, the way that you respond, having this like physiological response, or basically responding with some type of emotion, right? So when you take in all this information, it does all of those things. The information that you actually take in, your body then has a response to, right? So then it tells you, like, should you be happy about this? Should you be sad? Should you be worried? Right? That's exactly, and of course, like, this is all unconscious because we do this every second, right? Like sometimes we do this way too much and too fast, right? To like even comprehend why we're feeling a certain way. This totally, like all of these limiting beliefs or beliefs that come up, basically, you've taken in information before, where then your brain has created a neural pathway, or like, I like to use the example of like, think about if you walk along like a dirt path, right? And you walk over and over, and the path just keeps getting more and more defined and deeper and everything like that, right? Same idea for your brain is, as you come up upon the same thoughts or feelings and experiences, as you get more and more proof and evidence to support some type of belief, it's going to feel more true. Doesn't mean that it's actually true. It just means that your brain has taken in that information to then process it as a belief, right? Again, doesn't mean that it's factually true. It just means it's what you believe. This is where a lot of your limiting beliefs come up. So I could talk about this all day, because this is something that I love talking about with clients and really diving into their limiting beliefs about. My point around saying this, we're going to get into like the action steps and the homework here, but my point around like really talking about how your brain works, how you really own your power and rediscover your confidence, all of these different things you have to kind of dive into in order to feel truly confident within yourself. Like I said, like, this is the work that you personally have to do. It's not something that I can just give you, unfortunately, right? So because of that, I say all of that because one of the things, especially with this challenge that I am launching, is this new program that teaches you exactly how to do that. It really walks you through all of these different parts on how to find that confidence within you. Like I said, this is not something I can give you. However, I can guide you through that process of how I've helped my clients with this, how I've done this for myself, grouping that into a program so that you can actually know how to do this for yourself, walking yourself through this process and doing the work so that you can find that confidence. And then with that, using that confidence to then unlock your wealth, which I'm super excited about. So I'll tell you more about that as we go. Let's dive into some of the homework and action steps. So with all of that, with everything we talked about today, I know I touched on a lot, but here's some of the things that I really want you to walk away with and like work on today. I really encourage you to share these in the group too. I'd love to know what comes up for you. So first of all, I want you to specifically identify the thought or belief that comes up when it comes to feeling like an imposter or feeling like you're not good enough, right? It's not just imposter syndrome. It's not just what if I'm not good enough, right? I want you to really think about, like, when does this come up for you? When does it come up for you most? What is that specific fear or worry or like what if question, right? So you might be saying like, what if I'm not good enough to be a successful business owner, right? I've heard this one so many times. What if I fail, right? What if you fail at what, right? That's what I want you to get specific on. What if I can't do this? What is this? What if I can't do what specifically? I really want you to identify what specifically is that thought. What are you most afraid of? If this is challenging for you and you're just like, well, I know the general idea of it, but I've never thought about the specifics of it. I want you to find that general thought. Like, is it not feeling good enough? Is it, what if I fail? Is it like, what if I can't do this? Or who am I to be doing this? Like, what thought comes up for you? And then ask yourself, well, how is that a problem? Say, if you were to fail, how would that be a problem? Right? That way you can really like get specific on like, okay, well, if I do fail, then it would mean this, right? So walk yourself kind of through that process. I encourage you to journal this out so that way you have it on paper. Don't be afraid of doing this. I know that you've probably heard, especially with mindset work, I just want to like throw in this idea of like the mindset work isn't just like thinking good thoughts, or it's not just journaling in general, or, things like that. I feel like mindset is another one of those terms that gets thrown around so much. But one of the things that is most helpful in mindset work, or like the work that I do with my clients, is I want you to not be afraid to write down the things that scare you or worry you or that are coming up for you, or things that you may just need to like vent about and like let out. What if you did write down the thought, like, what if I'm not good enough to be a successful business owner? What if I fail at launching this next program? I don't know, like whatever it is, right? Like if you write that out, especially getting it out on paper, like getting it out of your mind, basically, that actually does help you. And here's the thing I want to say to you, like, as you do that, I want you to remember that all of these feelings that you're having around these worries and fears around this, they're all valid, right? I want that to sink in for a second. All of your feelings around this are valid. There's nothing wrong about it. They all come up. Like I said, it's normal. And I want you to know that that is okay, first of all, because that's what's going to help you work through it, is actually letting that come out, validating yourself in that and saying like, I know it's okay to feel this way, because you're going to use that to then like rewire your brain or to change that thought or to do something different, right? It's going to help you instead of just like being afraid to say the thing, right? So I want you to start there. Identify that very specific thought or belief. And then as a second part to this, we're going to tie this back together. So stay with me. I want you to, like I asked you before, think of a specific example when you did something new. If you can, relate it to this specific thing that you're worried about now, right? So if it's like, what if I'm not good enough to be a successful business owner? I want you to relate this example of doing something new back to your business. Like, what is something new that you have already done in your business or in relation to your business that you can use for this? The best way, the most that you're going to get out of this is if you can relate it to the thing that specific thing that you're already worried about, or that is related to that thing, right? Versus something drastically different, like driving a car versus running your business, right? Like two very different things. You can relate it to that same idea, that same topic, same area, whatever you want to call it. That's going to help you so much, especially in this exercise. So think about that specific example about when you did something new. And I want you to notice how you felt. If you can, this really helps too, if you can give yourself like 5 to 10 minutes with a journal, or with a piece of paper or something. If you can close your eyes, this can really help you walk through it. I want you to like visualize it. It can help to like be able to put yourself back into those feelings and in that place and like really visualize being there again. Thinking of it as a memory, right? Like getting yourself back into that place. I want you to think about how you felt before it happened. So before you did the thing, were you worried? Were you scared? Were you unsure? Were you like trembling because you were about to get on stage? Like, I don't know what it was, right? But like, how did you feel before that thing happened? How did you feel, or did you notice how you even felt while you were actually doing the thing? And then I really want you to reflect on how did you feel afterward. This is important, just like anything that we do new, right? Especially like driving a car for the first time. Think back, use this as an example, fill in the blank about your own specific example, but I'm going to use like a car, right? So before the first time I drove a car, I didn't know what I was doing, right? Like I was excited, but I was definitely nervous because I had never done it before, right? When I was doing it, I was really tense. I like was really afraid to even like move the wheel to like recorrect too much or things like that, right? Like I was really tense. I was like super laser focused because I didn't want to mess up. After I was done, I definitely felt accomplished. I was like, okay, that was hard. Like I definitely have some practicing to do, right? But I did it. Like that was amazing, right? I really want you to feel that. I want you to get into that place, really remember those feelings in your body about what it felt like to have accomplished that, right? How it felt after you did the thing that you were afraid to do. Again, especially if you can relate it back to the topic that is specifically coming up for you as a fear right now. Okay, second part of this, I want you to reframe this. And this is where both of them really relate, and why I wanted you to use the same area or the same thing. So like if it's in your business, right? Like when have you done something new in your business and how did you feel about that versus like doing something in your business now, you're feeling like, what if I'm not good enough? What if I fail, right? I want you to reframe this because isn't it great that you've already done these new things in your business? I'm gonna use that as this example. Isn't it great that you have already done new things like this in your business and that you have succeeded? Isn't it great that you have the awareness and tools to do something new again? Isn't it great that even if it's not perfect the first time, which of course it won't be, right? Isn't it perfect that even if it's not perfect the first time, you will learn and know that you can do it even better the next time with more confidence because you know what to expect, or you know what else you can be doing, or you have more about an awareness about what you would do differently the next time, right? You learn from that. Isn't it great that you have already succeeded? I want that to sink in. All of these things can be very, very powerful tools. This really, like I said, this is your mindset. This is nothing externally or outside of you that you need to find or you need to purchase or you need to do. This literally comes from within you, how you think, to leverage that confidence, to really rediscover that confidence and use it to create or do new things, right? So to do new things, to create the wealth that you want, to go and sell, to actually go have those sales conversations, right? It's you actually leveraging and like giving yourself so much credit for all that you have already accomplished to then use that as fuel to do these new things too. This is exactly where you leverage that confidence to create the wealth, which is what this challenge is all about, right? So I want you to use some of those. You can listen to this video again for those. You can write down your own. How would you reframe this? Isn't it great that you have already succeeded because you've already done new things like this in your business, right? I want you to give I want to give you these two ideas where like you can use these as your new beliefs that you want to rewire. These really come from, again, like NLP, they're presuppositions. There's a few that I really, really love, and there's two specifically that I want to share with you. The first one is there is no failure, there's only feedback. I love this idea because you literally cannot fail at anything, because when you do fail, when there is a failure, it only means that you're learning for the next time around, right? You're getting that feedback to do something differently or to try something new, something else that you haven't done for next time. It's only feedback. I usually share this article, maybe I'll share it in the group, about, you know, well-known celebrities or successful people who have had their own failures. That really comes back to this, right? I like to use these examples of like Walt Disney, you know, who was like fired for being like, what was it? not creative enough or something is like why he was fired. And like, now look what he went and did, right? Or J.K. Rowling, like how many times was she rejected from a publishing company before her book finally got published? And now like it is still around and still very relevant, you know, the Harry Potter series and everything. There's so many more. I will share that article in the group because I think it's such a great way to reframe failure, that you can really use those, knowing that failure is not an end all be all. It's just feedback for you to try again and again and again. First attempt in learning. Yes, I love that. I love that so much, Katie. Second of all, and Katie, this really comes back to this idea of like separating or detaching, is failing doesn't mean that you are a failure. So just because you fail at something, just because something you're doing fails, doesn't mean that you personally are a failure, right? It means nothing about you. It means nothing about you personally. You are innately good enough and worthy and deserving and all of these things literally just for being. I want to really pause for that dramatic effect there, because you are worthy, you are good enough, you are deserving, all of these things innately, like just for being, just for breathing every day, like just for being a human being, you are good enough. None of these failures, none of these other things that you've done, whether it's been a failure or it hasn't, maybe you didn't quite hit your goal or it didn't turn out how you wanted it to, it doesn't mean anything about you. Again, it's just feedback for doing it better the next time or doing it different the next time, but it doesn't mean anything about you personally, especially when it comes to your business. Your offer, your product, your service, whatever that looks like, it may have to do with you because you're the one providing it, right? You're the one delivering it. You're the one showing up and selling it. But it doesn't mean anything about you because it's not you. You're not selling yourself, right? You're not selling you. You're selling this piece of value, whatever that looks like, product, service, offer, whatever that is. I'm going to come back to this. It's not even a part of you, right? You like birthed it, which it may feel very personal to you, right? You put it together, you created it, but it doesn't actually mean anything about you personally. You're always just going to get more feedback, whether that's good or bad, right? Of how you can improve that thing and how you can do things differently, but it never means anything about you. At the end of the day, you still are the same, right? You are the same person. You are still worthy. You are still good enough. You are still deserving. All of these things, even if you failed at something that day, because it means nothing about you. Bob Ross says, as long as you are trying, you aren't failing. I totally agree with that. I love that so much. It's so true, because I mean, here's the thing is like, you always have the decision to quit, right? If you failed at something and you want to give it up, it's fully your call, right? You can quit. You have that right to quit. It still doesn't mean anything about you. It's just a decision you're making, right? You always have that decision to make. You can always do that, but does that feel good? Do you want to do that? Is that part of like, can you own your confidence and your already accomplishments through that and say like, I think it's time to quit because of this and this feels good? Or is it something that you still want to push forward and say like, no, I hardcore believe in this, which is exactly what I did with my business, you guys. There was a year, almost nearly a year, where I didn't sign a single client, mostly because I was spinning my wheels, keeping myself busy, really getting into my own imposter syndrome. But it was so frustrating. I remember laying on the couch in tears multiple times, really just feeling like I wasn't good enough, or wondering if I would ever be good enough, because I felt like I was doing everything and nothing was working, right? But in reality, I wasn't actually selling. I wasn't actually showing up and doing the things. I just expected it to happen. And that was a really hard truth to like come to, which is why I'm kind of calling you guys out. But the bigger thing is like, I could have chose to quit. I almost did. I really was so close to throwing in the towel because I just like felt like I couldn't handle it. Mostly because I was making it about me, right? It's not about me. It has nothing to do with me. But I decided to not. And because I believed in that bigger thing, right? So like if that's you, just know that you can do this. Of course, you have that choice. But if this is something you truly believe in and something you want to create, your wealthy future, whatever this looks like for you and how you define it, you can do this, like without a doubt in my mind. But you have to own your power and find your confidence first to leverage that. Think of all the people who have ideas but never act on them. Oh my God, yeah, exactly. There's so many people. Spinning my wheels, keeping busy. I love this. Spinning my wheels, keeping busy is exactly what I've been doing, avoiding action because of imposter syndrome. You are my messenger today. I'm so glad. This was so me. This is why I am sharing this. I could get emotional on this because I have such a heart for you guys. If this is you, if you are spinning your wheels, if you're not taking action because of imposter syndrome, because you don't feel confident yet, you're probably downloading all the freebies or looking externally for the answers about what you're doing wrong or what you can do differently or which strategy you need in order to do it. I guarantee you it comes back to your confidence first. Of course, there's strategies. Of course, there's things that you can put in place, but you literally have to believe in yourself first in order to do anything, right? In order to drive a car, you have to believe that you can do it, right? You literally have to have that belief within yourself first in order to make it happen. I could talk about that all day, but I need to go hop on another call. So I really, really hope that this was helpful. Let me know what comes up for you guys in the homework. I would love for you guys to share it in your own post. Please use this group. Encourage each other, hold each other accountable in this. Really feel free to share. This is a safe place for you guys to share any of the deepest things that come up, especially around imposter syndrome. The more honest you can be with yourself, the more it's going to help you. The more you dive into this, of course, the more you're going to get out of it. Like I mentioned, only you can do this work for yourself, right? I can guide you. I can give you prompts. I can, give you this course or walk you through all of these steps on how to do it, but you actually have to show up and do the work. So let me know what questions come up for you guys. I've not had enough coffee today, so I'm gonna go drink my coffee so I can learn how to speak. But thank you guys so much for being here. I'm really excited for you to dive into this first day. I will be back tomorrow for day 2. Let me know what comes up and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye guys.